The second the clock struck 6, my boyfriend, soon-to-be husband, was supposed to be idling at the curb, engine purring like a well-fed panther, ready to ferry me home. Instead, the man famous for his frostbitten self-control had opened the passenger door of his midnight black Maybach for his brand-new secretary. In that instant I knew, this marriage was over before the officiant even finished the vows. I floated across the marble lobby, still tasting the sweetness of the afternoon, picturing the candlelit corner table I'd booked at Le Jardin. The plan was champagne, truffle risotto, and maybe, just maybe, a toast to the 3 years we'd survived without strangling each other. I tugged the brass handle of the revolving door, stepped into the humid Riverdale dusk, and stopped dead. Inside the car, curled on the buttersoft passenger seat as if she owned it, sat a girl, barely 22, ivory skin paper-thin, jet-black ponytail quivering like a guilty metronome. Our eyes locked through the windshield. She gave me a sheepish little tongue poke that was probably supposed to read adorable, then hugged her venti bubble tea to her chest like a bulletproof shield. "Sterling, please don't get the wrong idea," she called through the cracked window, voice soaked in syrup. "I've got killer cramps I could barely stand." Adrian was kind enough to let me hitch a ride. The straw disappeared between her rose-petal lips. She sucked loudly, never budging from the throne that, by unspoken Sterling Walsh law, belonged to the wife. I looked at my husband. He was hunched over his phone, thumbs flicking, deaf to the estrogen war raging 3 feet away. A cold, wet thing slid down my spine. Tonight was our anniversary. I had imagined champagne flutes clinking, his reluctant half-smile softening into something like affection. Instead I got this, whatever this was. The girl tried again, tilting her head like a wounded sparrow. "I know you and Sterling have plans. I'll hop out at St. Camillus up the block, promise." The way she said Sterling, intimate and possessive, froze my blood. Adrian despised proximity. He once made his own cousin ride in the second row with a broken ankle. Now he was playing chauffeur to a menstruating secretary. I stepped forward, gravel crunching under my Louboutins. "Out." Sophie blinked, lashes beaded with unshed tears. I'm sorry, Sterling." Yet her gaze flicked to Adrian, pleading for rescue. He finally glanced up, frown faint but unmistakable. "Pearl, it's 2 miles. No big deal." "Adrian," I cut in, voice iced. "Remind me what you promised the night you slid that 48-carat atrocity on my finger." A beat of silence. The evening cicadas screamed. Realization slid behind his grey eyes, the glacier cracked. He turned to her. "Hospital's 5 blocks. Grab a lift, expense it." The door clicked open. Sophie unfolded her trembling legs, bubble tea sloshing onto the curb, and stood on the pavement like a scolded choir girl. I inhaled. The car's interior reeked of brown sugar boba and cheap vanilla. My stomach lurched. "Disgusting," I muttered. "Smells like a middle school cafeteria." Color drained from her cheeks, even the straw seemed to wilt. Adrian's mouth tightened. "It was just a favor." "Keep explaining," I warned, scanning the plaza where colleagues loitered, pretending not to watch. "Give them tomorrow's headline." He exhaled through his teeth, surrendering. "Let's go home." The engine growled, the door whispered shut. In the side mirror Sophie shrank into a forlorn figurine wobbling on stilettos. He never looked back. At Bella Vista I went straight to the steam shower, scrubbing until the bubble tea ghost dissolved. Arms banded around my waist. Adrian, wet shirt plastered to my spine. "She's nothing, Pearl. An assistant. One irregular day, why punish me for a blip?" "First time in 3 years you've let another woman in that seat," I said, voice muffled by the spray. "Your cousin Celia fractured her tibia and still got relegated to the 3rd row, remember?" He laughed softly, lips grazing my nape. "So the Sterling heiress is jealous?" I shut my eyes. "Just don't make me regret trusting you." "I see only you," he murmured, drawing my hand to his heart. "Always." I wanted to believe him. I should have known better. A week later my feed erupted with Sophie's sunshine yellow heart emojis. Big thanks to my amazing boss for connecting me with Sterling Walsh's miracle TCM doctor, period pain, bye-bye. Below it, a snapshot of Adrian's WhatsApp, the doctor's contact card, forwarded. The same physician I had begged him to squeeze in for cousin months ago refused because he only treats Sterling Walsh blood. The same doctor now prescribing Sophie herbal pellets. And there, perched on her lap like a lapdog, a quilted Chanel flap, classic black with gold hardware, captioned, "Apology thank you gift from the nicest CEO ever." My vision tunneled. I nearly called Hour to shred her personnel file. Instead, I dialed Alex at the city's most extravagant private hospital. "I'm bankrolling executive checkups for every Sterling Walsh employee," I purred. "Deliver the invites today, every cubicle, every janitor's closet." Next I rang the Chanel boutique. By 4 p.m. the courier bikes had fanned out across Midtown, logoed carryalls, sunglasses, scarves, sofa-shaped void the only gap on the manifest. Within minutes Slack channels caught fire. "Ladies the GOAT, first luxury bag ever, Sterling Walsh employee appreciation level, infinite." Heads turned, eyebrows raised. Sophie read every thread, hands shaking over her keyboard, cheeks incinerated crimson. Rumor took flight on gossamer wings, and the consensus roosted loud and clear. Nobody poaches the Queen's king without paying the toll. She might have Adrian's pity. She did not have mine. She couldn't sit still at her cubicle. Cryptic remarks drifted over every few minutes, each one needling her pride. Her fingers trembled as she stuffed the Chanel bag and the prescription into a tote, then marched to the executive suite. "Sterling, I'm returning these." Adrian had just stepped out of a 4-hour video conference and looked drained. He frowned at her puffy eyes. "What now?" Sophie's voice shook. "The whole company is calling me the other." She swallowed a sob, opened the staff group chat, and tilted the screen toward him. "I never thought one ride in the passenger seat would anger Sterling so much. I swear I had no ulterior motive. Sterling, I'll apologize to Sterling, whatever it takes for her to forgive me." Adrian rubbed his temples. He handled everything by email and had never even opened Instagram. "Come with me to see Pearl." That night Adrian brought Sophie to our Bella Vista estate. She trailed behind him, timid and red-eyed. "Pearl, this is a misunderstanding. Let's clear the air. It's just a handbag, no need to escalate." Sophie stepped forward with crimson eyes and bowed deeply. "I'm sorry, I overstepped and upset you. It won't happen again." I shut my laptop, leaned back on the sofa, and folded my arms. "Sophie, is it? Ambition is normal, but while chasing what you want, remember propriety. I'll say this once, anyone who tries to wreck my marriage will rue the day." Sophie went white, humiliation flooding her gaze. She hadn't expected such razor-sharp bluntness. Adrian's brows drew together. "I'm reassigning her. What you fear will never happen." His words told me the concession was made. I wouldn't press further. But this was the last free pass I would ever give him. 3 years of marriage, let him stay faithful to the end. You didn't have to humiliate a kid that hard. After Sophie left, Adrian rested against the tea table, voice cool. I lifted my eyes. "You know exactly how possessive I am." She almost couldn't take it, talked about ending things. I stared at him for a long moment, tone flat. "You're the one who let her ride shotgun." Adrian frowned, exasperated. "It was literally on the way. She was cramping so badly she nearly passed out. Basic decency said I couldn't ignore her. I didn't argue. There was no point." After a stretch of silence I looked up, deadly earnest. "Adrian, remember the deal we chased right after our wedding? That female partner, drunk on leverage, wanted to clink glasses in a toast. You exploded, killed the project, cost Sterling Walsh tens of millions. And now," I gave a soft, mirthless laugh. "Adrian, I treasure this marriage. I want us to grow old together. But life is long and temptations endless. I don't want us to finish in regret." I stood to leave. Adrian's pupils flared. He strode over and locked me in his arms, voice hoarse. "Pearl, what you dread will never come to pass." True to form, Adrian moved Sophie out of the executive wing the next morning and set her to printing, copying, and collating, grueling, thankless chores. I never hinted that anyone hound her, yet the office is a carnivorous circus. Offend the lady and words aren't required. The pack attacks on its own. Every filthy task landed on her desk, and the glow she'd worn in the C-suite vanished. One noon I brought Adrian lunch and heard shrill abuse spill from a conference room. "Sophie, are you brain dead? You reformatted the file? How did HR even hire you?" Sophie stood weeping. I'm sorry, manager. I'll redo it right now. The board convenes in 30 minutes, redo it by then. She shook like a leaf, grievance brimming in her eyes. Cry. Will tears magic the deck together? Pack up and get out today. The manager hurled the folder. A razor-sharp sheet slit her forehead. Just then Adrian stepped off the elevator to meet me and caught the scene. His gaze turned glacial. Sophie froze, mortified, twisting away. Being scolded was unbearable. Having the man she adored witness it snapped the last thread of her self-respect. I'll clear my things now. She choked, bolting for the door. Enough. Adrian rarely shows rage, but it flared across his face now. He seized Sophie's wrist and glared at the manager. Morgan, impressive leadership, berating and assaulting subordinates. Morgan stayed composed. Sterling, her error could cost us $1 million. I emerged from the corner carrying the lunch. Adrian's eyes snapped to me. After murmuring something to Sophie, he jerked me by the elbow into his office and slammed the door so hard the glass rattled. Inside, his face was thunderous. Pearl, I moved her. I don't speak to her, why keep tormenting her? Does wielding power against a kid make you proud? When did you become this vicious? I gaped at the man I'd known since childhood, a knifing pain in my chest. 20+ years, and he condemned me without a shred of proof. In that instant I knew, our marriage was over. Adrian's counterattack arrived even faster than I'd imagined. The very next morning, he promoted Sophie to be his personal secretary and moved her desk straight into his office. Morgan, who had been with Sterling Walsh since day one, was also fired. The company has no place for bullies. Morgan's face flushed purple. I've done nothing I'm ashamed of, he shot back. Everything I did was for the good of Sterling Walsh. Sterling, why can't we fire an intern who cost us millions? Adrian gave a soft, chilling laugh. Quite the silver tongue. Did you really think I wouldn't see this was Pearl's setup from the start? Out of respect for your 10 years of service, get out on your own. Morgan stared at Adrian in disbelief. Sterling is a good woman. You'll regret betraying her. He spun on his heel, cleared his desk that afternoon, and left the building. He wasn't the only one, several other employees close to me resigned the same day. That afternoon Sterling Walsh pulled its capital from a major Sterling project. When I heard the news, I knew it was Adrian's warning. After these past few years, Sterling Walsh had long since outgrown Sterling. He was telling me, without a word, that if I kept pushing, Sterling would be next. I leaned against the bar cabinet in my office. Empty bottles littered the desk. I was drunk, my heart hurt so badly I couldn't breathe, and tears kept falling. All for Sophie. Adrian had trampled the 3-generation alliance and my pride into the dirt. I drained the last of the red wine, let the glass slip from my fingers. It shattered on the floor the way my marriage to Adrian had beyond repair. I slid the wedding band from my ring finger and tossed it into the trash, wiped my face, and the haze in my eyes lifted. I took out the divorce papers and the property division agreement I'd already prepared, had my assistant deliver them to Sterling Walsh, and then texted Adrian. Let's get divorced. I still had my pride. A man who dirted himself wasn't worth another second of my life. From that day on, Adrian and I stopped speaking. He moved out of the Bella Vista estate, and I told Mrs. Housekeeper to box up every personal item he'd left behind and throw it all away. One evening Sophie rang the doorbell. She stood in front of me wearing my dress, a pale blue necklace at her throat, the anniversary gift Adrian had given me the first year of our marriage, now flashing on another woman. Fresh crimson love bites stained her fair skin, her eyes still dewy. Anyone could see she'd just climbed out of a man's bed. Sis, Sterling, Adrian asked me to drop something off. Smiling sweetly, she handed me a fat document envelope. It felt like a book inside. I opened it, an antique etiquette manual. My hand shook with rage, my vision darkened. Staring at that book, I felt I was seeing Adrian's true face for the first time. All that past gentleness and courtesy had been an act. Underneath, he was just another foul man. Sophie leaned against the foyer wall, tugging her neckline lower to expose more lurid marks, her voice dripping triumph. Adrian says you're stubborn and foul-tempered, that you never made him happy. You'd better read this manual. A woman ought to worship her husband, learn to be docile. I gave a cold laugh and hurled the vile book straight at her face. Our ancestors fought for generations to overthrow feudalism and give women equal dignity, I snapped. Never thought, in this new century, someone would volunteer to be a pampered little wife. You were born in the wrong era. Then I unceremoniously shoved her out and slammed the door. Looking down at that antique etiquette manual lying on the floor, the last trace of feeling I had for Adrian withered and died. Mrs. Housekeeper didn't know the full story. Feeling sorry for our 3-year marriage, she ventured. No grudge lasts overnight between spouses, one of you has to bend. Sterling, why don't you be the one? Sterling's just throwing a tantrum. Men are like that, sometimes they need coaxing. I said nothing. I knew Adrian expected me to bow, but why should I? He was the one who'd broken the rules, yet I was supposed to apologize. Ridiculous. He still didn't understand me. I'd rather shatter into jade than survive as tile, and besides, Sterling might be smaller than Sterling Walsh, but if the two families split for good, he'd be the one bleeding the hardest. After that night, Adrian never contacted me again, flaunting Sophie everywhere he went. The assistant had moved not only into his office but into his other penthouse as well, becoming his private caretaker in every sense. A mutual friend sought me out, hesitating before he asked, "Pearl, aren't you going to do something about Adrian's little assistant?" I simply smiled. When a man's heart wanders, no amount of policing helps. Sometimes it's cleaner to cut the rope. My friend stared, stunned by my resolve, then sighed. Adrian really is a fool. The next evening I walked into a major charity gala and, as expected, saw Adrian stroll in with his arm around Sophie's waist. Instantly, sidelong glances flicked my way. Everyone in Riverdale had heard about us. They were dying to see how I'd react to the other flaunted in my face. I felt the stares, coolly clinked glasses with my investment partner, and turned away without even a flick of the eyes toward Adrian. His expression stiffened. He clearly hadn't expected such indifference. I was laughing with the investor I'd arranged to meet when Sophie, clueless, glided up. "Sam, Sterling Walsh is also very interested in the project you're funding. Here's my business card, could we set up a detailed discussion?" I looked her over. Bespoke couture, flawless makeup, she almost passed for serious business. Pity the substance wasn't there. The vanity in her eyes made her a painted clown. Sam broke off his conversation with me, turned to Sophie, and let raw contempt flash in his eyes. "Who exactly are you? You think you're entitled to a real discussion with me? The standards at these galas drop every season, now they let just anyone through the door." He delivered the complaint straight to me. I only smiled, saying nothing, while I watched Sophie's face bleach white and her body sway as if a sudden wind had hit her. These past weeks she'd hung on Adrian's arm and every hanger-on had flattered her until she ballooned out of proportion, forgetting where she actually ranked. Tonight she'd come to flaunt that borrowed status, to flex in front of me, blind to the fact that most people here saw nothing but another. Anyone with real pedigree would sooner sip air than trade words with her. And Sam's name carried serious weight. A conversation about money with him required Adrian himself to show up if Sterling Walsh wanted to look serious. For another to march up and demand a detailed talk was an outright insult. "Sorry, Sam, she's young and doesn't know any better." Adrian arrived almost at once, moving Sophie behind him, voice cordial. "Still, Sterling Walsh is interested in the project. When might you be free? I'll come to your office." Sam's gaze drifted lazily across the three of us. "My one rule is corporate stability. Word is you and Sterling are negotiating a divorce. That kind of tremor makes me nervous. Partnerships on ice until I can size up what Sterling Walsh looks like once it detaches from the Sterling name." Adrian's expression snapped. He spun toward me. "Divorce? When did I ever say anything about divorce?" I took a slow sip of Merlot. "The papers are already at the office, couriered over this morning. The WhatsApp message hit your phone at 9 sharp. Adrian, are your eyes going, or did you just skip your own inbox?" His face darkened another shade. He flicked a glance at Sophie. Guilt flickered in her eyes. I tucked the confirmation away. Both the chat thread and the hard copy had been intercepted, Sophie's doing, so Adrian really hadn't seen them. I shrugged, amused. "No matter. The asset split package lands on your desk this afternoon, hand-delivered by my lawyer. Argue with him, not with me. Pearl, I refuse to sign." He lunged, fingers vicing around my arm so hard the bone throbbed. I frowned, and the next second another man wrenched him off and tucked me against his chest. Liam. What do you think you're doing to my fiancé, Adrian? Adrian's eyes flared crimson. You dare flaunt another man in my face, Pearl? I looked at that jealous, cuckolded glare and felt my own expression ice over. Funny accusation. Who climbed into someone else's bed first? You rolled around with her, and now you want veto power over my life. A spoiled man holds no fascination for me. Our raised voices turned heads, the crowd scented drama and circled. I didn't sleep with her, nothing happened. I cut him off, voice laced with venom. Nothing. That ultrasound in her purse says otherwise. I reached into my clutch and slapped the printout against his chest, Sophie's first trimester photo, courtesy of the pie I'd had tailing them for weeks. Sophie is pregnant. That's impossible, Adrian whispered, staring at her. I kept smiling. Conveniently, I'm pregnant too, 8 weeks, and the father is Liam. Call us even. Sign the papers and we both walk away clean. Liam's grip tightened, wonder in his voice. You're carrying our baby, Pearl? I gave him a soft smile and rested a hand over the barely there curve. Wondering whether she'll have your eyes or mine. Yours would be perfect, he said, grinning. Then, to Adrian, sign quickly, ex-hubby. I want her walking down the aisle before the bump ruins the silhouette of the dress. I've loved Pearl since we were kids, Liam added, unable to stop beaming. Thanks for stepping aside. Invitations in the mail along with a thank you envelope fat enough to show my appreciation. The taunt shredded Adrian's last thread of control. With an animal sound he swung at Liam, who met him halfway. Champagne towers toppled, linen-draped tables flipped, and society's finest scrambled for clearer air while the two men smashed through ice sculptures and floral arrangements. Sophie hovered at the edge, wringing her hands, lost. I signaled security. They muscled in, but Adrian slipped the scrum, caught my wrist, and hauled me toward the French doors. Adrian, where are you? Sophie started, only to be blocked by his assistant. Pearl. Liam shouted. I threw him a look that said, I've got this. He bit back pursuit. Outside, under the portico's dim sconces, Adrian crushed me into an embrace that smelled of spilled bourbon and desperation. Let's start over, please. I'm begging you. I shoved free without hesitation. Never. I don't do second helpings of betrayal, and I certainly don't recycle trash. I was only using her, he babbled. I laughed outright. Oh, Adrian, even you can't sell that line. You used her all the way into your bed, paraded her through our circle, and gifted her a baby. You never once considered how that would shred my face or my heart. His mouth opened, closed. It was one night. I was drunk. You were so drunk you managed performance-level stamina? Impressive. Alcohol knocks most men out cold, clearly it lent you wings. For the sake of the 3 years we shared, let's part like adults, Adrian. I gave him one long, final look, then turned to leave. What about the child? Adrian's eyes were crimson as he grabbed my arm. I shook him off with a snap of irritation. Too late to care now, isn't it? There's no rewind button in this life, Adrian. Our marriage is dead. Sign the papers and keep a shred of dignity. Without a flicker of hesitation I walked away. Behind me his strangled cry rang out. Sophie burst from the shadows and flung her arms around him. Sterling G, you still have me. I'm carrying your baby too. Shut up. Did you delete the messages from my phone? His voice cracked like a whip, eyes so bloodshot they looked ready to devour her. Sterling G, I. She quailed, stammering, her face a sickly white. That evening Adrian raced to the Bella Vista estate. The moment he pressed his thumb to the lock, he knew his print had been erased. Panic contorted his face as he slumped against the door, pleading hoarsely, Pearl, I was wrong, forgive me, just this once. Sir. Mrs. Housekeeper's uncertain voice drifted from behind. He spun around to find her accompanied by a man in a tailored suit realtor. One look and Adrian's stomach lurched. She hasn't come back, he rasped. Sterling sold the house long ago. I brought realtor to show it today, Mrs. Housekeeper murmured. Sold. Pearl actually sold our home. He staggered backward, grief-struck. Only now did he see the mansion I had once decorated down to the last silk cushion stripped bare. The rose gardens where I had planted acres of crimson blooms, every last petal gone, nothing left but broken canes and churned mud. In that instant he understood, bone deep, I truly no longer wanted him. He drifted back to Stirling Walsh like a ghost. The next morning Sophie was quietly escorted out. She sobbed until her shoulders heaved. Sterling GE, if Pearl doesn't love you, I do. And our baby, are you rejecting us both? Enough. You were nothing but a pawn, and we both know how that child was conceived. His glare was venomous. Security dragged her to St. Camilla's Hospital and ended the pregnancy then and there. The scandal roared through both families. I braced myself for Adrian's parents, but they never came. Later I learned Mom had barred their path, and after what their son had done, they hadn't the face to plead his case. Once Sophie was gone, Adrian went frantic trying to trace me, but I was already hiding in a sleepy southern town, carrying my child and basking in quiet sunlight beside Liam. He studied the gentle curve of my belly, eyes warm and tentative. Pearl, won't you at least consider marrying me? A child deserves a father. Reclining on a chaise, I traced circles over the bump and smiled. No need. Sterling blood is all the armor she'll ever need. Boy or girl, her life will be golden. 6 months into my pregnancy, Adrian finally signed the divorce settlement. Our two dynasties were entwined in too many joint ventures. Neither side wanted stock avalanches. The split was ice calm, partnerships intact. Stirling Walsh and Sterling still toasted one another at galas, but everyone knew the 3-generation alliance was ash. 4 months later my daughter arrived. Adrian hurried to the hospital, took one look at her unmistakable almond eyes, and began to tremble. Pearl, she's mine, isn't she? From my pillow I answered coolly, it doesn't matter. She is my daughter, period. The fragile light in his eyes snuffed out. Years slipped by. The child grew, each week more startlingly Adrian's mirror. He visited ever more often, and soon the two were inseparable. On her 3rd birthday she called him Daddy. I said nothing. Sterling Walsh's empire would need an heir someday. While he played devoted father, Adrian lived like a monk, pouring every erg of energy into Sterling Walsh. The group's valuation doubled, then tripled our daughter's future leverage. 4 years after the divorce he knelt, ring in hand, and asked me to marry him again. I declined without a tremor. This life suits me perfectly. I no longer need a marriage certificate. He rose, eyes wet, voice ragged. If I had never touched Sophie, would we still be together? I gave no answer. Regret is the most worthless currency in the world. One must keep moving forward, and I am content. Adrian belongs to a chapter one have closed. My future is written without him. Thanks for listening. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate this tale? If it moved you, like, share, and drop your thoughts below, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories. See you next time.